Hi everyone, my name's Nick Cox. I'm the managing partner of Velocity Ventures, a venture capital firm that invests in early stage companies in the travel and hospitality space. And we're running a series of interviews called Founders Unplugged. And today we're here with Rayner Loi, the CEO of Lumitics, one of our portfolio companies. Welcome to Founders Unplugged, Rayner.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Great. Do you mind if I hit you with a few questions?
Yeah, of course. Let's do it.
Great, thanks. I guess the first one is, it's a really interesting space that you're in. And a lot of people are focused on the problems of solving food waste. What sparked your particular interest in solving that problem?
When I was in university in my first year, I did quite a bit of volunteering. And I mainly volunteered as a mentor to youths who are at risk. And there's really one particular incident that really sparked my whole sort of mission on sort of tackling the food waste. And that was when I witnessed firsthand how families in Singapore were struggling to have meals on their table. And I just couldn't sort of reconcile that fact because I know as a country we're throwing away so much good food. That sort of sparked me on a journey to sort of thinking harder about the food waste problem. And I realized that there was a lot of good work already being done in the recycling space, where there are companies sort of taking food waste and turning that into compost. Amazing job being done there. There was also a lot of work being done in the redistribution space, where charities would redistribute surplus food to those who need it. But I realized that there was almost nothing being done in the prevention space. I then formed the conviction that prevention is far more important than redistributing and recycling. I saw an opportunity and started Lumitics.
That's fantastic, and it's great to have that passion to drive you on towards your goals. So the device that Lumitics produces, known as Insight, helps commercial kitchens and other operators to reduce their food waste, and it could be categorized as an Internet of Things type device. That's known to be a pretty challenging space for startups. Could you tell us a little bit about, how you've addressed the challenges of developing a product in that space?
Yeah, it was really challenging because as a young company, we had close to no resource, right? And building an IoT product from scratch is always challenging because, well, firstly, you have to go through several prototypes. We had to work with a sort of contract manufacturer to help us build the first few sort of prototypes that were then tested in hotels. I think that was also the second challenge where, when you're working with, hotels and prestigious brands, at times a sort of makeshift sort of wooden prototype wouldn't really cut it. And so we had a bit of struggle and challenge to, actually get our first few prototypes running in a large hotel. We had to go through a few iterations before we had a stable sort of prototype that could actually work and was something that was acceptable and sort of well received to our initial clients. So I would say that the learning curve and that initial curve was really steep. But once we sort of got over that hump, I think, it really comes down to whether do we have a product that really sort of solves the pain points of the customer. And thankfully, we've been able to get through all those initial humps.
Well, I think you've proven that because you're getting some amazing traction. So well done on having found your way through those early challenges. We couldn't be talking about travel and hospitality without talking about COVID, and it's had a huge impact on the markets that you're servicing. I'd be interested on your insights on how have you seen your customers respond to COVID? And what sort of things have you been able to do to help them get through that?
Yeah, so I think when COVID first hit, and here in Singapore, when the government implemented a bunch of measures, well, obviously occupancy plunged, and a lot of our hotels went into somewhat of a hibernation mode, where they had to shut down their restaurants, they had to obviously shut down their buffet lines, and they just were really in a space where they were just preserving and saving, trying to bring down as much cost as possible. Most recently, as most of you guys would know in the news, the Singapore government has eased some of those restrictions and have allowed hotels to apply for sort of permits to be able to open their hotels for local and domestic sort of tourism and guests. So with that, we've seen some of our hotel partners sort of increase activity. And well, obviously with that, their kitchens are back up and running, though not fully operational like they were pre-COVID, but at least they have some operations. And what we're starting to see is that they've realized that during this time, especially during a pandemic where every cent counts, a solution like ours makes so much more sense for them, where they can't afford to be wasteful, and they're using our solution to ensure that their costs are kept in check.
Yeah, no, that's great. There's a great sustainability story behind your product, but there's also a real commercial imperative there, which is terrific. So, congratulations on that. Now, we couldn't have a Founders Unplugged session without also giving you the opportunity to hit us with some questions. Rayner, is there anything you'd like to pose our way?
Yeah, definitely. So something I've been thinking about quite a bit and having conversations with some of my other friends who are founders of their own companies is the idea around how can startups who, obviously in the travel and hospitality space, and we've been hit severely, our own revenues have plunged. How can we sort of go about raising money during this difficult time? Because I would imagine VCs will be looking at our numbers, and obviously most of us wouldn't have any numbers to show for during this season. How can we then go about making a compelling sort of story and narrative to be able to raise, say, a pre-A or even a Series A round?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and one that's on the minds of a lot of founders and a lot of venture capitalists at a time like this. I mean, the challenge is trying to get line of sight on when the recovery is going to occur. I think certainly in our case, and I think most people would say that the travel and hospitality industry is one that's so fundamental to our region, to the world, that it has to come back. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So then the question is, what's the timing around that? And I think what venture capitalists will do is they'll take a worst case view on what that timing is, to make sure that companies that they invest in are not going to be left stranded if the worst case outcome comes through. And so what we're doing with our investment assessment is having a look at cash flow forecasts and runways based on the best case, the likely case, but also the worst case. So I think founders need to be able to present those set of numbers and show that their financing and their business plan can handle a worst case outcome, and that even with that outcome they can deliver value. And I think if founders are able to show that, then I think they can make a great investment case. Obviously, longer runways imply valuation adjustments, and I think we're seeing that in the market. But I think they can be managed in a way that doesn't dilute founders too much, but also provides value to investors by scaling valuations depending on outcomes. And so that's another way of kind of dealing with the uncertainty that's out there.
Thanks for sharing that insight. I think that was really helpful. And I'm sure many other founders who are watching this series would sort of, be wanting to take notes on that and present sort of more of a analytical sort of approach to their financials. Instead of harping on we're this great company with this great narrative, but really trying to show investors that we've thought about the worst case, and with the money that we're raising, it can help us get through this certain time period to then hopefully be able to ride on the recovery. I think those are good thoughts.
Thank you, Rayner. And thank you for joining us on Founders Unplugged. It's been a pleasure having you here today and working with you at Lumitics, and look forward to working with you on your continued success.
Thanks, Nick, for having me.
Cheers.